This is Set Him Free, Chapter 2. Despite seeming incredibly calm and collected throughout his exchange with the prince, Virgil was internally panicking. He'd come extremely close to being arrested today. If it weren't for the cloak Virgil always kept wrapped tight around his shoulders, he would probably be chained within the iron cells of a dungeon. Luckily, his dark tastes had proven to be quite beneficial in times of need. A small laugh found its way to his lips as he recalled the look on Roman's face when he had unclasped the fastener that held the cloak together. Though the day had been stressful, some portions of it had emerged to be decently entertaining. Glimpsing behind his shoulder to ensure that he hadn't been followed, Virgil quietly slipped behind the wooden townhouses and ducked into the shadows. With the hole in the fence now covered, he was faced with having to scale the tall cedar pickets, landing semi-gracefully on the other side. Making certain that the bag of supplies was still secure within his belt loop, Virgil began the trek to his home, if you could even call it that. In all honesty, the wooden foundation resembled that of a slightly larger shack, though it had once been a welcoming cottage. Years of wear and tear combined with the wrath of Mother Nature had reduced its once pure white exterior to a chipped beige, and the windowsills had long since gained splinters in their previously polished corners. Virgil hadn't minded when he had first been brought to this place, though. After all, under different circumstances, he wouldn't have had a home in the first place. He was lucky to have found the others when he did. Virgil stepped inside the ancient cottage, closing the door behind him, which brought forth a cloud of dust. He strolled through the main corridor, slowing to a stop as the sound of clinking parts came into earshot. Turning towards the sound, Virgil entered a large, open room lined with bookshelves and papers. At the very front of the room sat a figure hunched over a dark oak workbench, an open journal lying by their side as they glanced back and forth between the pages, before returning to a trinket held tightly in their hands. A smile managed to find its way onto his lips as he walked forward, addressing the figure before him, who immediately flinched in response. "Hey, Janus, I'm back." "Good grief," the man hissed, regaining his composure. "I thought I hadn't informed you not to sneak up on me like that." "My mistake. I thought you had heard me when I opened the door." "It's all right. All I ask is that you don't repeat it again." The man returned back to his work, fastening a small knob onto what appeared to be some kind of cylindrical tube. "I take it you've returned what I requested." "You know I always do." Virgil unfastened the bag from its belt loop, placing it atop the table. Janus perked up at the sight of the coarse burlap, his hands instantly fiddling with the twined straps. Known to always be a tinkerer, the man's green eyes always lit up when a new piece of shining equipment came into view. Ever since Virgil had met Janus, he was always sketching some new design or toying with a mechanical creation. Even the red mark that surrounded half of his face was said to be due to a failed trial, or at least that's what he claimed the cause to be. Overall, Janus was usually pretty accurate when it came to producing functioning machines. Carefully reaching inside the bag, Janus pulled out a twin set of brass gears, along with a small cedar box. Virgil watched as the lid was lifted from the box, revealing a glass lens in perfect condition. Disbelief crossed Virgil's face. "How?" Janus lifted the lens to his eye, carefully inspecting its pristine surface. "That bag fell from a height of 2 stories, and the glass is still intact? Do you really think I wouldn't prepare for any and all situations?" He smirked. "I knew that you would be fleeing at a fast rate with a greater regard for escape rather than my supplies, so I planned accordingly. Honestly, Virgil, it's not like I've known you for 11 years of your life or anything." "All right, fair enough. Now, if you won't excuse me, I have a project to finish." Turning back to his workbench, Janus began polishing the lens while plucking several tools from the wooden counter, leaving Virgil in silence. Rather than slinking off to his room per usual, Virgil quietly pulled up a stool and watched the inventor tinker. The way his hands moved throughout the machine was almost hypnotic, each screw and clasp being placed in its correct place, while fastening the pieces together with the same precision. Small clicks sounded every so often, an indicator of a new section coming together, all to form a singular entity. A flickering caught Virgil's eye, and he soon realized that it had come from the glass lens, which was carefully being inserted to the front of the contraption at the moment. He leaned in closer, trying to identify what Janus had spent hours constructing, and the moment he caught a glimpse of the instrument, he couldn't help but admire how elegant it was. The silence that had formed within the moment was wiped away as an audible gasp was heard from behind the work table. Janus turned around and smiled as Virgil's face came into view. The younger's eyes were filled with fascination, glittering with a mix of wonder and astonishment. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Janus spoke, causing Virgil to jump in surprise. He had been so caught up in trying to untangle the secrets of the machinery standing before him that he hadn't noticed that Janus had turned around. Yeah, it really is," he stuttered. "What does it do?" "That is something you'll discover when I'm finished." The man turned around and resumed his work. "Judging by the amount of effort it is costing me to attach these gears, I still have a decent amount of time to fill. If I'm correct, I still haven't heard of your day's endeavors yet. Would you be so kind as to oblige?" It was the same as usual. I had almost gotten back here without trouble, but then Princey just had to show up." "And by Princey, I assume you mean Prince Averill?" "Yeah. Anyways, he gave me the whole stealing is wrong spiel and then attempted to arrest me. Obviously, I ran, and he followed. I tried using the fence exit that we had created, but someone had sealed it off." "Work of the kingdom, most likely," Janus muttered. "They don't like secrets existing that aren't their own." "What is their problem, anyways? Can they not understand what we have to do to survive?" "They don't know what we go through, and they don't care," Janus sneered. "All those royals care about is power and control. Without it, they would be nothing. Still, it doesn't matter, because in the end, we're still the petty thieves trying to make it to the next day, and they still possess unimaginable control." "It's going to be all right, though. We'll make it through, like we always do," Virgil said, searching the inventor's face for any signs of hope. For a moment, he thought he had caught a glimpse of it, but it was gone within moments. Trying to lighten the mood, Virgil continued his story. "It doesn't matter what they think anyway, because in the end, we'll always find some way to mess with their precious little kingdom. Seriously, you should have seen the look on Princey's face today when I tripped him. He was so phased, it took him a good 10 seconds to get back up again." "As it should. It wouldn't surprise me if he went home and ranted about it to that little advisor of his for the rest of the night." "Could you imagine?" Virgil suppressed a laugh. "I feel bad for anyone who would have to listen to him." "Are you all talking about those stuck-up monarchs without me?" A crash sounded from another room, followed by several pounding footsteps. A man appeared in the doorway, clothed in green and black. "Seriously, I leave to check on the rat family in the attic for 5 minutes, and you decide to actually do something fun?" "Greetings to you too, Remus," Janus said, allowing a smirk to creep its way onto his face. "I don't suppose you have anything to add." "Oh, you know darn well I do. For once, I'd just like to stick it to them and set one of their towers ablaze." because you totally wouldn't be caught and imprisoned for that within seconds. Hey, I can be stealthy too. They would never see me coming, especially since I would release a horde of raccoons in the palace grounds as a distraction first. And this is why I handle the thievery, Virgil sighed, suppressing a laugh. Remus huffed, crossing his arms. I think you all just don't appreciate my creativity. And I think you should silence your conversations as I am attempting to finish a very delicate process. Janus had gathered several small tools in his hand, holding each at a different angle. A gear clung to the side of the contraption, now attempting to grasp onto a knob that was currently being adhered to its brass surface. The metallic pieces clattered against each other as he attached them with a final click. A satisfied sigh escaped the older's lips as he lifted the new mechanism up for all to see, examining it with a delighted smile. He carefully placed it back onto the table, giving the knob a small turn and bringing the shining lens up to gaze through a nearby window. Sunlight trickled through the glass, resting atop the newly polished lens and creating a shimmer of golden metal. Finishing several minute adjustments, Janus finally stepped back from his work and grinned. Two odd faces stared back at him, silently asking for a description as to what the trinket did. Janus obliged, wiping the polish and oil stains from his hands as he spoke. To answer both of your painfully obvious expressions, I have constructed a device capable of viewing the vast collections of stars above us. I figured I've gone searching for so many answers down here, I might as well expand my range. Virgil's eyes lit up. So you're saying that we can just really see all of those stars just glowing up there? All those universes simply discovered within that small thing? Mm-hmm. We're gonna see them aliens! Remus exclaimed excitedly, reaching for the machine before Janus smacked his hand away. Under no circumstances will either of you lay a hand upon this creation without my permission, Janus stated firmly. I would just love for the invention I spent days developing to simply fall to pieces due to one of your two's ignorance. Reinforcing his point, Janus placed the stargazer atop a higher shelf. Remus's form immediately sunk. "Aw, but Jan..." "No buts," Janus started, sighing as Remus began to snicker. Each invention requires valuable parts, and it's hard enough to acquire those as it is. Yeah, there is no way I'm going through what I had to do today again just to fix something you broke. You guys are no fun. If by fun you mean completely reckless and unsafe, then sure, I guess I'm not fun, Virgil said, beginning to stroll towards the door. I don't know about you all, but I've had a long day, so I'm going to turn in for the night. He shuffled over to the corridor, slowly heading to his own bedroom. Before he could reach the doorway, however, he was stopped by Janus. Virgil? You're limping slightly. Are you all right? He asked, attempting to conceal the worry in his tone. Virgil looked down to the gash that ran down his right leg. He hadn't even realized he was limping. Yeah, I'm fine. I just got a little scratched up while fleeing. It'll be fine. It doesn't even hurt that bad. You know I can tell when you're lying, Virgil. Seriously, Janus, I'm okay. I can just take care of it later. Taking care of it later would make it easier for you to get infections. Let me help you, please. Virgil was hesitant, but after a few moments of Janus's silent pleading, he finally gave in. He returned to the wooden stool he had pulled up, allowing Janus to inspect the wound. The gash was a considerable size, running from the middle of Virgil's shin to just above his ankle. Remus, would you mind fetching the remedy kit? Janus said, retrieving a roll of pristine white bandages from a nearby cabinet, while observing several weird marks that had been placed upon the bandages. Remus, care to tell me what these are?
Oh, well, I figured it may be fun to just try and see what they taste like. No biggie.
Janus sighed before soaking a cloth in cold water and proceeding to press it against the cut, causing Virgil to grimace. The inventor shrank back, cautiously attempting to place the cloth on the wound once more. "What did you do to receive such a large injury?" he asked, his face filling with concern. "It was nothing," Virgil spoke through gritted teeth, trying to dismiss the sting that now pulsated within his leg. "I just slipped and ended up hitting my leg right as I caught myself." "Because a small slip-up can definitely inflict this much damage. How was I supposed to know that the gutter would break away while I was trying to climb the building?" Both Janus and Remus looked up at the mention of this, their eyes wide. Janus stopped cleaning the wound momentarily, a mix of alarm and disbelief covering his face. "You slipped and fell off a building?" "I caught myself before I hit the ground." "I can't believe you. That was so cool!" Remus interrupted, throwing his hands into the air while dropping several bottles and jars in the process. "Dangerous. I was going to say dangerous. In no universe is that cool." Remus rushed to Virgil's side, swarming him with questions.
How tall was the building? Did time feel like it was slowing down? Did your life flash before your eyes? If it did, what do I look like in the future? Wait, scratch that. I already know the answer. Same as before, but definitely with an even cooler mustache.
"You know what, Remus? I think my life did flash before my eyes. And I must say, somehow you managed to look even more idiotic in the future," Virgil quipped, bringing a small laugh from Janus.
Good enough for me. Idiotic is what I was going for.
"I hate to break up the little conversation you two have managed to create, but I am in need of a remedy. The cream in the blue jar should suffice." Remus snatched the blue jar up from the floor, handing it to Janus and immediately resuming his train of thought. Somehow, he'd managed to touch on several topics ranging from dissection to disintegration, though Virgil had already tuned out within seconds. He watched as Janus spread the medicine over the gash, wrapping his leg in narrow white bandages. He carefully tucked away the end of the thin cloth, placing the blue jar to the side. "There, you should be fine, though your leg is most likely going to feel sore for a few days." "Thank you, Janus." "I don't need any of your thanks. I am merely here to keep you well. You are the only one I believe to be capable of retrieving the pieces I require, and I wish to keep it that way. Do not confuse my aid for sympathy." Sure," Virgil smirked, "because you definitely didn't seem worried about the fact that I fell off a building."
Ooh, he got you there, Jan.
"You two are my worst nightmares," Janus groaned. "Darn right we are," Virgil said, making his way to the edge of the room. "Good night, or whatever." "A pleasant evening to you as well," Janus hummed. "Oh, and Virgil?" "Yeah?" "Try not to fall off any buildings in the near future." "No promises." Virgil smiled, giving a final wave and ducking out of view. He padded down the hallway, turning the corner and quietly turning a silver doorknob. A sigh escaped his lips as he passed through the doorway, flopping onto a small mattress that lay in the corner of the room. Virgil turned his head to the side, glancing out the window. Hundreds of glimmering stars speckled the night sky, adorning the black horizon with an intricate display of light. It was a wonderful arrangement. Each sliver of illumination glowed with an incredible intensity, creating a freckled marvel. Some days, Virgil wished he could be swallowed up by the stars. With the universe seeming to be so vast, he could probably just flow through space forever, not having to think about anything else besides the blurred light of 1,000 diamonds. Sometimes the world seemed too small, cramming everything tighter and tighter. Walls, growing smaller with each breath. Walls, coming in only to crush you when you least expect it. Yet, when the stars came into view, the world widened. Walls became rubble, and all you could see was the light of the stars, pulling away from the world's predicaments. Virgil stole one last glance at the illuminations, getting lost in the sparkling glow a final time before sitting up. He reached under his mattress, retrieving a cylindrical box and lifting the lid ever so delicately. Inside lay a patch of purple cloth and a silver chain. Virgil retrieved both items, grasping one in each hand. His fingers ran across the intricate links of silver, while at the same time he could feel the soft weavings of the purple cloth brush past his palm. He continued to fiddle with these items, allowing his hands to identify every inch of the pieces found within the wooden box. Soon, sleep began tugging at his senses, causing his eyes to feel heavy and pulling at his subconsciousness. He allowed it to take over, letting his eyelids flutter close and feeling the soft embrace of a temporary peace. Chain and cloth still clasped in his hands, he drifted off into his dreams, images of the stars echoing within his mind. This has been Chapter 2 of Set Him Free. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time for Chapter 3.